So the third and final catalog in this course, we're going to actually be editing some of your guys' photos. I put out a tweet a while ago and I asked for as many different camera brands and models as I could get. Turns out you guys have every single camera brand pretty much out there. So we have a nice collection of Canon, Nikon, Sony, Fuji, Leica, Panasonic, even things like Pentax. So really excited to kind of dive in and see what we can do, as well as try to create a pretty consistent look and feel throughout all of these images. We're going to be tackling 25 images today, which is quite a bit. So buckle up and let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to be doing here is I just want to kind of get a look and feel for what we got here. So we got quite a bit of landscapes, some portraits, some cool drone shots. Yeah, these look really nice. Honestly, like blown away. These especially are incredible. Pretty stoked on those. But yeah, should be really fun to kind of go through these and see what we can get. Some really great shots from all over the world. Should be fun. I'm excited. So like I said, we're going to try to keep a pretty consistent look and feel throughout this to the best of our ability. And I do believe we can do that. So this is shot on a Nikon D810 from the looks of it. We're going to just be editing here the midtones, adjusting the highlights here to see what we can get. We're going to want to enable these profile corrections just so we can get some nice clean edges to our image, bump up those shadows. And yeah, this is looking already pretty nice. Really nice photo to begin with. Like I said, we need a nice clean raw file to work with. This looks nice. I really like the minimal atmosphere we got going on here. This looks great. So let's copy this over and see what else we can get. So beautiful photo of, it looks to be New York. Let's see how this edit will play out. So not too bad. I think it's definitely gonna need a little bit of tweaking, which is fine. I don't love the white balance in this though. We gotta adjust that for sure. Make it a bit warmer. There we go, that looks nice. And then let's see here. This is a CR2 file, so it was shot on a Canon. Canons are nice and simple to edit, thankfully. That already looks really nice. Let's see about some split toning in the shadows. Let's make it a little bluer, like kind of a turquoise blue, just really subtle. But I do believe that, especially in the shadows down here, this looks really nice. Really clean photo to begin with, like I said. Definitely want to adjust the horizon line, just make sure it's all straight. That looks great. Pretty happy with that. So let's continue. So moving on here, we have a couple of drone shots to work with. DJI has gotten a lot better with these raw files, thankfully. So it's nice and easy to work with. This looks really pretty. Some sort of cathedral, it looks like. So let's go ahead and see what we can get here. I think people used to be afraid to edit drone files just because it's a little scary. There's sometimes there wasn't a lot of information. But luckily, this is exposed really nicely, so we have a lot to work with. This looks really clean, honestly. Like I really enjoy the color palette we're working with here. Something I want to do right away, though, is make these greens a bit warmer versus, I don't love the cool. I like the sort of warmer greens. Has more of like a kind of like an autumn sort of feel to it, which I enjoy. I'm gonna go ahead and desaturate the greens as well, just a little bit. I love the blue pool right here. This looks so nice. Let's go ahead and add some split toning here as well. Why not? Just a little bit. Now, pretty simple edit. The biggest change you're going to see is in the greens. But I do love how this came out. This looks really nice. Again, super simple edit. Nice little clean fade to the image. And we're going to go ahead and move on to our next drone shot. So in this drone shot right here, very cool. As you can see, we got probably the person that took the photo right down there. Let's see here. We're going to just get this nice and at the exact zoom that we want. Let's go ahead and start diving in, trying to edit this puppy. So bring down the darks and the lights here. And I'm noticing that drone shots definitely respond to contrast differently. That's okay. I love the colors though. It's beautiful, beautiful fall colors. I don't really want to mess around with those too much because they already look so nice, but you can definitely bring down the luminance a little bit. Yeah, that looks nice. Maybe even love the oranges as well. Great. That looks nice. As you guys can see, very simple edit. I really like how that turned out. Next, we have a portrait here. This looks like another CR2 file taken on a Canon 70D, so a APS-C style sensor. No worries at all here. This is going to be a pretty moody edit from the looks of it, which is okay. We're going to have to bring back a lot of these shadows and save them, which from the looks of it we can do, thankfully. This is a great image though to show you guys how to do noise reduction. So here in Lightroom you can really kind of mess around with your noise reduction and just see what's gonna, you don't want the skin to look too smooth, that's gonna be important. But it's good to mess around and see what is possible here. Now this looks pretty nice for the most part. I do notice there's a lot of red in the skin tones. It's probably because of some sort of reflecting light. So what we can do here is desaturate the reds just a little bit. Let's see how that like plays out. I think I'd rather have the reds removed for the most part than, you know, very apparent. Let's see how that looks. Already a pretty big difference. Notice though that the shot was already pretty underexposed. Maybe it was done intentionally, but it's important to note that you should try to expose to the best of your ability of what you might want the final image to look like. So that's why it's going to be pretty grainy in the final product, because there's going to be a lot of grain. Like we had to bring up the exposure almost 3 stops. So that's important to note. But I think we can still save it. It does look pretty nice. Again, a decent amount of red still on the face. You gotta be careful about that. We don't want to desaturate all the red, but I do think that that probably looks about as good as it's gonna get. I think that looks pretty nice. We got a before and we got an after. All right, moving on here. We have a beautiful night shot from the looks of it. Let's go in here and start editing. So the shadows here are quite crushed. That's what we're gonna, I think I kind of like them that way though. I think this is probably intentionally exposed to get this kind of like cool patch of light down here. And this is what probably is the main focal point of the image. But let's see here. So bring this in, we'll bump the exposure up. Just kind of mess around with highlights and such. I think the highlights down probably looks the best. That looks pretty nice. Cool shot too. I like the angle. This looks nice. Moving on here, we have a Fuji file from the looks of it. I do love working with Fuji colors, so this should be a breeze to edit, but let's see what we can get. I want to make sure that we preserve the highlights on the buildings. We'll be able to see them. There we go. So that looks nice. We're going to want to enable some profile corrections with the Fuji. There we go. Make this a little bit warmer. Straighten that out, the horizon line. Perfect. Love how wide this is as well. This looks really nice. Let's see what else we got here. I think kind of some darker shadows like this looks really nice. Honestly, has a really cool vibe to it. Now, definitely what's going to look really nice here is some cool split toning. So let's see what we can get here with that. Now, you notice what it does to the buildings, which are majority shadows. It looks super nice. Really clean. I think it's a little too orange though. Let's even try, instead of the shadows, let's try the highlights. That might look a little bit better. No, I think the shadows look the nicest when they're a little orange, a little red. Like that a lot. A little bit too much though. Just really subtle. I want it to be super subtle, you know, like you don't want it to be like that. You want it to be just really subtle, really nice. Maybe like somewhere in between a 5 and a 10. That looks pretty nice. Now, see what we can do about the tonality here on the tone curve. Let's bring up those midtones. Now I think honestly this would probably look pretty cool 16 by 9. I do love that aspect ratio. Now that looks pretty sweet. So as you can see here, we got our before and after. Really nice colors. Again, a beautiful raw file to start with, which obviously helps a lot, but looks great. Really like the colors. Let's go ahead and move on here. This is a really beautiful shot. Looks like it was also taken on a Fuji. So let's go see what we got here. Pretty dark image to start with, totally fine. It's important to know what you're trying to achieve with an image like this. And I think for me, I want to be able to see the subject's face. A little bit warmer on the white balance, but I do really like how this was shot. I like the framing. Let's go ahead and start diving into the edit. Now, we don't want to add too much contrast here, and we're already pushing like 2.5 stops of exposure. But this is a really cool shot. I want to be able to emphasize those mountains as much as I can. I do feel like I'm doing that. Like, it was pretty overexposed, and we just want to try to get as much of that reflection as we can. Love the framing of this. Love the leading lines. Just gonna give it a little bit of a crop. I think this looks really nice. Let's go ahead and hop into the luminance tab here. We're gonna just mess around with some colors. Just want to see what we got here. I think actually we're gonna bump up the greens, bump them down actually, and then we'll decrease the saturation and make them a little bit warmer instead of a cooler green. Yeah, I like that a lot. Now this is our before and after. Really clean, really nice. Again, super minimal. Just brought the exposure up, added some color, added some fade, very slight fade, and then we, saved as much of those highlights as we could, while still exposing for the subject. And I think this looks great. Moving on to the next one, though. This one is beautiful. I think this is a really, really pretty photo. Let's first start by straightening this. I want to make sure that's straight on the horizon line. Now, we could try to copy this. I don't know exactly how that's going to look. Let's give it a shot. Not too bad, actually. I really like that. One thing to be wary of is our white balance. I want to make sure did we click profile corrections on this guy? Yeah. So that means they should be on here as well, which is cool. This was shot at only ISO 500, which is good. So we don't have too much grain, but these shadows are pretty dark. I don't want them to be super dark because then we can bring down the whole exposure of the image. Now, the red on his face is a little much, so let's bring down the luminance just ever so slightly. And you see how that it makes it a little bit less harsh on his face. We can even drop the saturation a little bit. I think that looks pretty nice. Now, the background is just phenomenal, but I do notice it looks like someone might be taking a picture over here, and I don't particularly think that adds too much to the photo, so let's go ahead and crop it differently. Could try this, but then you got the boat right there as well. So maybe you even try like a vertical crop on this just to see how it looks. Now we bring it all the way over here. We crop out now the friend taking photos, also the probably tour boat, and this is a beautiful shot. I think this looks really nice. I would like a little bit more on the horizontal, so we can do a 4x5. And this should be just enough. Yeah, this looks great. Pretty happy with that. So here's our before and after. It looks really nice. Really nice, clean colors. Pretty happy with the results. Moving on here, this looks great. I think we might be able to even copy one of these. Let's try one of these over to this file, which is another Canon file. Nice and simple to edit, thankfully. Let's go ahead and hop in here. So obviously really beautiful colors already. I noticed this is a really wide photo. It's taken at 17 millimeters, so quite wide. I'm not a huge fan of this wide of a lens necessarily, but I do like the shot. So let's see if we can just crop in here to make it seem a little bit normal. This looks great. Let's pop into the midtones here. Bring this down. Like a nice pastel look to this. And then I also really want to bring out the details in this jacket. So let's go ahead and paint that, shall we? Let's do a little bit up here. Okay, so we just want to bring the shadows up just a little bit, not too much because we don't want it to look fake, but if we just bring it up all the way, you can see like what you're painting, which is nice. We're just gonna bring it just a little bit. I don't want it to look fake. That looks nice. Super simple edit, but I do like how it turned out. Pretty happy with this. So let's move on. Next, we have a portrait here. Really love the light. The colors are very complementary. You got red, white, and blue. Obviously, are great complementary colors. Let's hop in here and see how it's going to react. We got another Fuji file here, which is a plus. Those always do very well on Lightroom. Now, one thing I'm noticing right off the bat is the red is a bit too desaturated for my liking. And also, the shadows are very blue. So I want to warm up the shadows a little bit, just with like ever so slightly. It's going to help bring overall a little bit better distribution of color to the image. But I want to desaturate the red for sure. I just think it's a little too much. Something you gotta watch out for though is her lipstick might get desaturated as well, so you wanna keep an eye out for that. Just ever so slightly. I think this looks great. Yeah, super clean. Really like the light. The colors are great. I might even warm it up just even a little bit more. I think the shadows are very cool. We want them to be warmed up a bit. Yeah, this looks great. Really clean. The highlights though are a little too bright. Let's try that. Cool. Pretty happy with that. Let's bump the shadows and the blues on the jeans, and I think we'll have ourselves a finished product. Actually. Yeah, that looks great. Cool. Moving on here, we have a Pentax file, which is cool. It's from Pentax 645Z, so this is a medium format camera. Lots of dynamic range to work with, which is great. So let's see what we got here. Yeah, already right off the bat, you can just tell it's a medium format image the way it reacts, which is quite enjoyable. Very cool light too, working in this frame, which I enjoy. Yeah, I like that a lot. We'll be able to see that background just a little bit. Let's add some tonality into this. Again, we want to make it like pretty clean though, you know, so we don't want to add too much. I like that. Really soft, subtle colors. Love the t-shirt color. His eyes are really nice blue as well, so it's really adding to the frame. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Let's go ahead and move on. So this is a nice clean portrait. Let's see if that preset we developed earlier works. It does. I like this a lot. I think this is on a Leica, I believe. Yeah, this looks really nice. I think it's a Leica. Yeah, I like that a lot. So I want a little bit more definition in these highlights. Love the classic wood backdrop, of course. I think this is a classic look. You know, you got the denim jacket, a nice white tee. Looks really nice, nice and clean. Pretty happy with that. Don't really need to do much. This next one was taken on a Panasonic, I believe. So we really do have every camera brand, which is pretty cool. Lots of dynamic range in this, which is nice. So bumping the lights up here. I love the greens. Definitely think they're a little too bright and too green. Let's see what we got here though. Let's bring the saturation down. Also the hue. Let's make them a little bit warmer. Yeah, that looks nice. Now, this is vignetting quite a bit, and I don't believe there's a profile correction for any Pentax cameras, or sorry, Panasonic. So what we can do is switch to manual, and we can fix the vignetting manually, just to make sure that these edges look normal, and for the most part they do. We got a little bit of fringing up here, chromatic aberration, not too bad though. This looks sweet. I think a vertical crop might do this justice, honestly. Let's give that a shot. Yeah, I like that. A little bit too much foreground. Love the kind of trees canopied over the path. I'm pretty happy with that. Looks nice. Okay, moving on here. We got a cool nighttime shot. This is shot on Canon. I might actually go for a black and white with this, but let's just see how the color looks. Yeah, I like black and white. Looks cool. Bump up these highlights. We're just gonna make this a really pastel looking shot. Now, looks like this was shot on a Sigma lens, so we're gonna make sure that isn't vignetting. Sigma lenses tend to vignette quite a bit, especially their art series. But I'm pretty happy with that. That looks nice. Just a quick black and white edit. Now, the reason I might choose a black and white for this is because black and whites, especially at nighttime, are very color intensive. Sometimes there's a lot of colors that you don't want, and instead of trying to desaturate and figure out the HSL panel for all the different colors, sometimes black and white is just a lot easier, you know, and I think it really gives this image a lot of interesting perspective. I like the kind of documentary feel to it as it was, but I think the black and white really kind of just draws you right towards the subject. You know, they're looking at their phone. It looks like it's somewhere in Asia, I'm assuming. Yeah, this looks really nice. Next photo, we got the Grand Tetons. I mean, who doesn't love the Grand Tetons? We got a Sony file here. So let's see what we can do with the Sony. I know people always complain about Sony files, how the colors suck and yada, 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 but I don't really necessarily believe that. I think Sonys look pretty good. You just got to know what to do to get there. Yeah, this looks nice. Simple edit. I want to make it a little warmer. I do love the cool tones though. Maybe I won't touch that too much, but go somewhere in there. A little bit more shadow tonality. This looks sweet. The grass is a little too green for my liking. Sometimes Sony has this kind of like computer generated looking color. I do agree with that, but that doesn't mean you can't fix it. So we'll hop over to the saturation tab here, fix these greens. We want to make sure that they look natural. To me, bringing them down like that definitely is pretty nice. So that's our before and that's our after. As you can see, there's a lot of detail in this, and this looks really, really beautiful. Love the composition here. And again, it's because we started with a nice raw file that we're able to make a nice clean shot. I think 16:9 would do this justice. This looks sweet. Cool. All right, moving on here. We have another drone shot. So what I'm gonna do is actually copy the drone shot from this. Let's just see if that works. I don't know. It's a pretty different shot, so it might not. Not too bad. The thing to note here is we don't have a lot of color. So this could even look good black and white. Let's just try that because there's not a lot of color to work with here, or really any tones, which is fine. I do love the shot. It's really minimal. Love the waves. I think more waves, less beach would look pretty nice. Yeah, it looks nice. We have a beautiful shot of what looks like Miami. Again, shot on a Sony. Now, pretty bright colors. Typically, I don't enjoy really saturated, bright colors. So let's just fix that. I do love the composition though. I like how wide it is, but I am gonna crop it a little bit. I think there's too much sky on the left over here. So even cropping it like so, maybe even, see, it's tough because it's hard to know exactly what crop might look the best until you see it. But I think this looks really nice. Very even. Yeah, I like that a lot. Let's keep moving on. Great portrait here. Looks pretty shallow depth of field. Looks like a 50, f2.2. Let's see what we can do here. So pretty contrasty, lots of lost detail in the blacks. We can bring that back though. Let's see here. Enable. Yeah, this looks nice. The profile corrections help a lot for sure. So shot on a Nikon. I do like the colors though coming out of this. This looks nice. Really nice skin tones, very simple. Let's see the before and after here. Pretty happy with that. This is a beautiful shot. San Francisco. I want to see what we can do to make this even better, if I can. Definitely gonna bring those highlights down. I really want to see these waves though, just so pretty. Now, I'm not super concerned with the beach necessarily, the detail on the beach, but we can bring it up for now. I want to definitely add some pastel looking skies for sure. That looks super nice. Now, I do want to saturate the sky a bit just because I love how beautiful these colors are. So pretty. I don't really want to touch the HSL too much because I really like how it looks. But let's go ahead and mess with the midtones, see what we can get. Yeah, there we go. I am pretty happy with that. I might actually add a little bit of blue to the shadows, just a little bit. Nothing too crazy. Just because it looks like it was taken at dawn, really early in the morning, and typically the highlights early in the morning are very blue, and I don't think this is any different, so I really want to try to emphasize that as much as I can, and I think this looks really nice. Next shot looks like Jackson Hole again, or maybe even Canada. Really, really pretty. Let's see what we can do here. So we pasted the original look. Don't love that. We're going to reset it. Now, this is already a pretty contrasty image. Shot on a Sony. I am noticing there's quite a bit of sensor spots. Not the biggest deal, but I mean, if you want to help yourself, I would recommend cleaning your sensor if you can. But very easy to get rid of. There's a couple more over here. It's okay. For the sake of time, we'll just continue to keep editing here. We're gonna bump those shadows up. I want to see like the greens. You know, I love the greens in this shot, but I don't want to make it too, for lack of a better word, dad. I don't want it to be really HDR. I don't want it to feel HDR. So it's okay to have a little bit of shadows. Yeah, I think this looks more even now that I'm looking at it. So pretty simple again, but I don't think there's a lot to pull out of this necessarily. I do love the single red tent here. I think that's pretty cool. As I said, there's quite a few sensor spots on this guy, but for the most part, I really like the inclusion of the red tent. I think it really, stands out, which is cool. Great shot. I think the blues look a little weird though, so let's mess with those. Yeah, there we go. That looks great. Love that shadow coming across the frozen lake as well. See a before and after here. That looks nice. Cool. Last couple here. We got a sweet shot of some cows. Let's go ahead and apply that preset. Looks great. Let's enable some profile corrections. I believe this was on an M240. Like, those are super clean. Yeah, I love that. I want to keep kind of like a clean look to this. Not a lot of contrast because there wasn't any to begin with. Very simple. Adjust those highlights though. Love the kind of subtle, warm, like almost orange glow in the highlights. I think this looks really great. cool. That looks nice. Another beautiful shot. Love this. This looks like London, probably. That does not look good. Let's try that again. Quite a bit of color in that sky. I didn't really realize. Probably go for a more moody look here. Not a lot of contrast though, for sure. This is also the M240. Really love the files coming out of that camera. It looks nice. A little bit cool in the shadows, so maybe we'll mess with that. Bring up the oranges. That looks nice. Pretty simple edit. As you can see, I brought the highlights down in the sky. I also made it a bit darker. I just felt like, I'm assuming this time of day was either sunset or sunrise. It's looking like sunrise. So I almost would want to crop this because there's somebody else over here. And I really like the one guy just in the frame. I think that looks really nice. The shadows are a bit crushed now that I'm looking at it. I'm gonna do that and bring yeah, that looks nice. So if you look at it before and after. Moving on here, we have a simple shot of some power lines. Let's go ahead and edit this, see what kind of colors we can pull out of it. There's not a lot of color besides that blue, which is okay, but we're gonna have to definitely mess around with this, see what we can get. As you can see, I'm very much brightening it up. Warming it up probably as well. Can't tell what time of day this is, but it looks to be towards the evening. Let's check that out. Cool. I mean, there's not a lot we can do. That looks pretty good considering. And then finally ending it with a beautiful shot of some nature. Now, we pasted the look that we've been using. And again, it's making these greens very warm. And I do enjoy that, but I think it's a little bit too much for this image. So a quick before and after. Now, let's bring the lights down. Again, you're noticing that like all these images is just about finding the right tones to begin with. And then you can really start dialing in your edit. That looks great. Cool. So we've now edited 25 images. I'm going to just show you guys some before and afters of all of these guys. Now, my goal with this was to create a consistent look and feel throughout all of these images. So the thing that you're going to notice why these look so similar, I think is very similar tones. You know, I messed with the tone curve very similarly throughout all of these. And these are from like 8 or 9 different camera brands. You know, like this is not just from a single camera. So we got drones in here, we got full frame, we got medium format cameras, we got APS-C. And the goal really was just to make the edits look as similar as possible. Granted, it's pretty hard because I don't have control over the initial settings or how these images were shot, but I do believe we did a pretty good job. Now, the thing that sticks out to me, the Fuji files definitely are the easiest to edit. That's just my personal opinion. But the cool thing is if you have a knowledge of how to edit, you know, and for me, it's a strong, firm foundation of knowing how to use the tone curve, which you guys have obviously seen me do now to multiple different images, and then really understanding what colors you want to bring out in an image and how to do that, you know, using the HSL panel and understanding the balance between color and tonality, because those are two different things, but they have to coexist in your images. So with that in mind, I think we did a pretty good job, definitely, of keeping a consistent look and feel throughout all of this, surprisingly. You know, there's probably at least 10 or 15 different cameras in here. And I really think it looks pretty good for the most part. You can definitely notice some differences between like just how the files look from a digital perspective. You know, like some of them look very digital, some of them don't. I think the Sony files tend to look pretty digital. Fuji looks just super nice. Canon and Nikon also look very similar. That's what I've noticed. But at the end of the day, like if you have a knowledge of how to edit, you know, and these just look really nice, really clean, and they all look very similar, you know, and if you have a knowledge of how to edit, you can really make any camera look as similar or as unsimilar as you might want them to be. So I'm pretty happy with those. And with all that being said, I'm going to leave you guys at that for editing. We're now going to be moving over to exporting and how to properly export files for Instagram, web, as well as full res files that you want to keep and show your friends. So that kind of concludes the editing portion of this lesson. Let's go ahead and move on now to exporting.